Hello and welcome to the Quietly Visible podcast. I'm your host, Carol Stewart, founder of Abounding Solutions and author of Quietly Visible, Leading with Influence and Impact as an Introverted Woman. And this is the podcast for those of you who want to thrive as leaders and in life. My guest today is Yvonne Okiyo, and she wears two hats. So her day job is as an EDI specialist, that's equity, diversity and inclusion, for those of you who are unaware. And her second hat that she wears is as a holistic premenopause and postmenopause coach and holistic nutritionist, which I think both hats are very relevant to the topics that we talk about on this podcast, because as a leader, as an introverted leader and a woman, Yvonne has the experience of being in environments where there's pressure to be someone that you're not, where there's pressure to put on that extroverted energy, which can have an impact on your well-being. And then with her second hat, in terms of her holistic nutrition and perimenopause and postmenopause or experience, as a leader, as an introverted leader, as a woman going through all those, you need to be concerned about your well-being. And so I'm really looking forward to the conversation, hearing Yvonne's experience, and also what you can do to optimize your well-being as well, and to be your authentic self. So hello, Yvonne, and welcome.
Afternoon, Carol. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about who Yvonne is and these two hats that you wear.
Wow, you honestly summed it up so well. So I'll start with what I do as a professional. As you mentioned, I'm an equity, diversity and inclusion specialist. So I've worked in this field for over 20 years. I honestly feel it's my calling, and it's my passion. It's my vocation. So I'm a social justice activist, and yes, like I said, I've been doing that for 20 years. And my other hat is I'm a holistic, as you said, perimenopause and menopause coach, but also a holistic nutrition coach. And those are both my passions, really. I mean, the world we live in, unfortunately, we're not quite there yet in terms of equity and everyone having their voice, and just the world, unfortunately, is just not just, is it? There's so much going on that really irks me, and I want to make a difference and make an impact for those, unrepresented groups, marginalised groups and communities, etc. And similarly, as part of, so my two passions are actually race, of course, being a Black woman, but also being female. My other passion is gender equity. And one of the areas I'm really interested in is health and well-being, because looking at women's health in particular, unfortunately, is one of the areas when looking at gender equity that so much, it's not one area that's looked at, again, because the majority of the scientists and the research, etc., focuses on males, particularly white middle-class males. So unfortunately, we don't get much of a look in. And then when you look at women, a lot of the evidence doesn't look at Black women either. But so the impacts around health inequalities impact us even more. And coupled with that time of life when you're at the peak of your career, it's just the impact that has on one's health and well-being. And it's so important that we look after ourselves, whether you're a professional woman, self-employed, because women, we give so much, we honestly do. And we wonder why it impacts us more. So for me, it's just a combination of all of the above. I think the two hats merge so well together, and I want to support. I feel that God has put it on me to support as many and impact as many women as I can, because unfortunately, I don't think society wants that. the systems. No, so we have to do what we can as much as we can.
Yeah, and I love what you say about it being about social justice, because social justice is at the root of why I do what I do, because of the inequalities that exist
Yes.
for women and other represented groups. And I do believe that if all women had the belief in themselves and the confidence to and given access to opportunities, they would be an influence for change for the greater good. And I really do believe that. So, yeah, it's great to speak to somebody who is also passionate about social justice. Yeah, so you're a woman, you're a Black woman, as you said, and you're introverted. So, before we sort of explore looking at what women of a particular age group can do to protect and look after their well-being, what has your experience been like as somebody leading in the space that you lead as an
Yes.
introverted woman?
I think it's, for me, it's as you said, as women, something we're not that good at. I think again, society comes into play, or perhaps growing up. I remember being taught women are seen and not heard, etc., etc. So culturally, for some, we've grown up knowing, with quieter and all of that stuff, but for me, it's really, as I've grown older, it's really learning to embrace my quieter strengths. Um, and those include things like deep thinking and empathy, and those are really like powerful leadership tools. And I think we're recognizing that more now. So when we're looking at leadership tools and leadership skills, those softer skills essentially is what we're looking for more now. So I think this is the time for the introvert. So for me, it's really embracing them, whereas before they were perhaps seen as a weakness. Now they're seen as a strength, and we're looking for more empathetic leaders and emotional intelligence, etc., etc. So it's really honing in on those skills and letting them shine, because they're fantastic skills and powerful leadership tools, and it's really using them to my advantage. So that's really what I've learned to do, is navigating and using them in different scenarios and different contexts.
And is that something that you always been able to do, or how did you get to realize that
Yes,
those
I
were your
think it's,
superpowers?
yeah, I think it's come with age, if I'm being completely honest. I think when I was younger, I had that imposter syndrome and it's also how society's changed as well, where extroverts, to be a leader, you have to be that extrovert, etc. Is how we've been conditioned, for want of a better word. But I think as I've grown older and grown more into myself and found myself, for want of a better word, it's recognizing that no, leaders don't have to be loud. They don't all have to be charismatic and always on. I've learned different leadership styles as well as you grow as a leader. So for me, it's just learning that what I have is enough. And it's just being my authentic self. I don't have to be the loudest person in the room. And yeah, so for me, it's come with experience, but it's also come with age, and it's also just come with, like you said, being confident and owning what I have and actually liking it. Um, you know, yeah. So it's just learning how to communicate and still being, clear and intentional and aligned with my values. So I don't, it's social justice, because I think that there's this stereotype that women, especially Black women that work in this field, or that warrior, and I don't have to do that. I can lead I can be quietly confident, and I think it's that really. And it's those key skills like listening and observing and reflecting. I don't have to speak first. I can just be that person that listens, observes, and reflects. And that's what you want in a leader, really. Everyone wants to feel heard, everyone wants to feel valued, etc. And I think those are really strong skills. So it's me just utilizing them. And I think it helps build those relationships. As a leader, it's so key to have those relationships, and they really help to build those relationship skills that are very much needed especially in the corporate world.
Yeah, and those skills I think are often underrated. Empathy, deep listening, as you said, those are crucial for leaders
They
to be
are.
able to do.
They are.
Because the thing is, leaders get things done through people. And in order to do that, you need to be able to connect with the people. You need to be able to communicate well with the people. And empathy and listening are crucial to that. But yeah, they're often
They really.
underrated, I think. Mm, yeah. And something that you said about liking yourself, that is so important. I think because of the narrative that has been historically put out there about introversion and extroversion being the ideal. I find a lot of people who are introverted have grown up with this almost self-hate or not necessarily liking that introversion that they have because of what has been placed on them by society and other people. But once you get to that place of, as you did, recognizing that those are your strengths, and liking yourself as you are, that to me is a game changer. It really is.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially again, working in equity, diversity and inclusion. It's all about, belonging and being authentic and bringing yourself to work, etc. I really don't want to be anyone else. I am me. You have to accept me as I am. And it's really about that. So it's, yeah, again, it's loving who you are, accepting who you are, owning who you are, and just bringing that person,
Yeah.
showing up as you are, and
Yeah.
just being authentically you. And they
Yeah.
like it, or they don't. But it's not really trying to fit into this mold. And it's the whole, just being 100% authentic and being yourself and really, really owning it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so powerful. And so what led you into the EDI work, and then what led you to then also go into this sort of holistic nutrition? 'Cause I'm suspecting that there's some that then they're not separate, that the work that you do in EDI has somehow led to you evolving to this holistic nutrition and looking at well-being and so on for menopausal women, perimenopausal, postmenopausal women as well.
Yes. I mean, with EDI, I studied at university, so I've done it as a qualification. My degree, my first one was in BA Sociology of Race and Culture, and then I did Culture, Communication, Society, and my professional life to date has, like I said, been in that field. And then what got me into health and well-being was it was actually I lost my brother, unfortunately, 10 years ago now. And at the time when it happened, a friend of mine actually suggested it. She was really into her fitness, and she said it happened in December, and she said, "Oh, January, of course, all the gyms are calling everyone, aren't they?" And she said, "Why don't you just join the gym and it may help take your mind off things?" So I did, and fitness quickly became my outlet. Most people do it for the physical, but for me, it literally was just to, literally take my mind off things. And then I think most people don't speak about the emotional and well-being side of it, which was so comforting for me at the time. And the more and more I got into it, the more I thought, okay, I need to start watching what I'm eating now. So just slowly started tweaking my diet. And of course, as time went on, just seeing the benefits it was having to my performance, to my recovery. Of course, there was physical benefits as well, the emotional, the well-being. And I thought, wow, if I can do this for me, what let me look into this more. So as time on, and I did different courses, etc., then got certified, and I thought I really want to share this with other women who are going through similar. And then, of course, as we age, I'm not perimenopausal yet, but I'm conscious. It's one of the things when, like I said, a woman in the peak of her career really does impact on work. I mean, we have the statistics show so many women end up leaving work because they're not getting that support, etc., etc. And that just doesn't sit right with me. It's a natural phase of a woman's life. We're all going to go through it, and we're really failing women. So for me, again, I really wanted to look into that more, and how women can get that support in the workplace. So I do advocate for that, but also how we can support ourselves. Because unfortunately, it's only now we're starting to learn more when we have celebrities like Davina McCall, etc. But it's what we can do for ourselves, for our nutrition, how we can lifestyle management in terms of sleep, in terms of energy, stress management, etc. So we can thrive, because I feel a lot of us are surviving, but we're not thriving. So for me, it was like I said, how can we support more women really to feel empowered and be the best version of themselves, so we can show up for ourselves initially, but that also impacts on in the home, it impacts at work, it impacts our relationships, so many areas of life. So that's where the two really merged. And I just love what I do in that sense.
That makes such a big difference, does it, when you love what you do? And I'd like to unpick both of those areas that you've mentioned, the support in the workplace and then what we can do to support ourselves. So I know we're starting slowly, but starting to hear it talked about more in the workplace. I remember growing up, I never heard my mum talk about it, or apart from sort of maybe mentioning a relative that was like going through it and having sort of real challenges and not able to work because of it. But I know there are more conversations being had about it in the workplace as people, as we're increasing awareness about it. And as you said, the likes of celebrities that are talking about their experiences helps to increase that awareness. So what are some of the things that you've seen, or for listeners that are listening that want to maybe advocate for this in the workplace? What are some of the things that can be done to make work life easier for women that are going through this?
I think the first thing is workplaces acknowledging that their staff will go through this, because, like I said, it's a natural phase of life, and in some, women, we make up 50% of the population, and depending on whichever work environment you have more, we may have X amount of females compared to men, etc. But it's really our duty of care to support our staff in the first place. I know if you're a public sector employer, you now have to develop like a menopause strategy or action plan. So employers will be required to do this by law in a couple of years anyway. But this should be part of your, what, as an employer, how can we best support our staff in terms of mental health and well-being? So it's things like having a menopause policy, for example, in the workplace, ensure it's applied consistently, providing training for your staff, and not just your female staff. I think sometimes we assume women are aware of perimenopause and menopause, but as you rightly said, it's only now we're starting to have those conversations. So our mothers didn't speak about it, etc. So it's raising awareness even amongst your female staff. We need to also raise awareness amongst our male staff so they can better support any female staff. But also, don't forget, men have women in their lives. They may have their wife, they may have their female relatives in terms of aunties, etc. Your mother may be going through it. So it's really understanding how you can support those women you love in your life. some workplaces have things like menopause champions, etc. But it's really looking at how we can better support. But the key thing is those reasonable adjustments. So menopause can be considered a disability under the Equality Act, because of course it's in terms of the length of time a woman experiences it. So how can we better support women in terms of like flexible working, or providing equipment like for women that may be experiencing hot flashes, etc. Providing a fan, for example, different working times in terms of fatigue, mental health support. You know, that there's this cognitive impact in terms of stress, anxiety, mood, etc. For those that wear uniforms, how can we provide uniforms to make them feel more comfortable? There's just so much support we can and should be providing, just to help, again, women be the best versions of themselves and perform at their best. And it's recognizing different symptoms, different days are different, so they can't be a one size fits all, because it affects women differently. And so it's just looking at that support that employers can provide for those women in the workplace. And it's having that empathy and understanding as well, I feel, is really, really key. Where we're so focused on performance, but not realizing one's performance might be affected by the lack of support. So it's a vicious circle and a bit of a catch-22. So it's educating oneself and speaking with the individual is really key. Of course, how can I best support you? And just really looking into that.
Yeah, and you know, from what you said, it is more than just giving somebody a fan, because I know sort of historically, when when I was working in the workplace, that that was what would be done. Oh, here's a fan. But it's more than just giving somebody a fan. As you said, it's about looking at policies. It's about making reasonable adjustments. And what you said about men developing awareness, I think, is so important. I remember a friend who was experiencing sometimes she would experience some severe sort of conditions as she was going through it. And her husband didn't really get it, wasn't really understanding about it. And then there was a webinar that she attended, and she got him to watch it as well with her. And it was like a penny drop for him. It was like a light bulb moment, because people were sharing their experiences. There was a professional who was talking about the changes that women are going through during this period and how it can affect them. And it was like, after that, he was like super helpful in, when she was having a bit of brain fog, getting her a notepad so she could write things down, and just, going out of his way to make things easier for her. And I think having those sorts of awareness sessions for men is so important.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like I said, it's women shouldn't have to leave the workplace or taking things like sick leave, when we can have, adjust, things like sickness and absence policies, etc. So it's really looking at what we can do, being creative and innovative and supportive to support all women as well.
Yeah, so that's the workplace aspect of what can be done in the workplace. And what can women do to support themselves?
I think again, it's educating ourselves. We need to be advocates for ourselves, because unfortunately you would assume most GPs are aware of perimenopause and menopause. Unfortunately, they're not, because it's not taught as part of when one is learning, doing the learning to be a doctor. So sometimes we have to go to the GP and say, I'm experiencing X. And when the GP says, I think it's X, you say, actually, no, these are the symptoms I've been experiencing. There's different tools out there where you could share, for example, your symptoms. And then it's really learning our bodies. So it's looking at what's different, which of course will help you to help manage those symptoms. And I mean, with the symptoms, there's so many symptoms. So again, it's learning the different symptoms you're experiencing. I mean, the hormone changes affect everything from our memory, brain fog, to our moods. Like I said, a lot of women aren't aware that mood swings, etc., might be due to that. They may affect our energy. They may even affect our confidence as women. So where you may have been someone that's very strong and confident, all of a sudden you start losing that confidence, especially if you're a woman in leadership. So a lot of women may think, oh, my body just isn't the same. They think they're literally losing it, where really they're navigating perimenopause and they're not receiving the support they need. So it's really understanding what's happening in your body, so you can be kind to yourself, compassionate to yourself. And then once you have those symptoms, then you can look at how you can manage it holistically. So nutrition is so powerful. But the reason I do holistic nutrition coaching, I don't just look at nutrition. I look at how you can manage those lifestyle things like stress, or sleep, etc., all of which impact on so many different of our lives. So it's really looking at knowing your body and looking at what you can do to support and manage those symptoms and alleviate those symptoms. Sorry.
Mm. Yeah, and I think nutrition does play a big factor in this. I mean, I remember for myself sort of having like hot flushes, and
Mm,
I
mm.
I sort of started to recognize things which would trigger it or exacerbate it, and one of those things I identified was sugar, or if
Oh,
I'd had a glass of wine or something like that, that would
yes, yes,
yeah, I began to recognize the patterns. Mm.
yes. I mean, sugar. We probably need another podcast on sugar altogether. But yeah, I mean, one of the reasons for sugar, as our hormones, estrogen drops, one of the impacts it may have is you start getting certain cravings, and sugar tends to be one of them. And alcohol is one of the things I wouldn't say cut out completely, but you may need to reduce because it can exacerbate some symptoms depending on which symptoms. And it's amazing how just tweaking those small things that you realize you start alleviating and reducing certain symptoms. But yeah, diet, sugar is definitely one. Even before your perimenopause or menopausal, we should be cutting that down anyway, or eliminating
Mm.
it altogether. But yeah, alcohol, I don't think many women realize the impact that can have in exacerbating some, not all,
Mm.
menopausal symptoms. And of course, it'll be different for different women. So, but it's
Yeah.
certainly one of the things one should start reducing once you reach that phase of life.
Yeah. And I'm curious. I mean, you probably don't know, and there may not even be any research in this. Is how um, introverted women experience going through perimenopause and menopause, and how extroverted women do.
Mm,
Whether there's any differences in the experience, how it impacts them in terms of how they show up. That's something I may have to do a bit of digging to see if there's any research into that.
that is, yeah. It's. I'm not sure if there's research. I have a feeling there isn't, just because
Mm,
it's so under researched as a whole. But it's something I'm actually going to look into.
mm,
What the research I am aware of is like in the UK. Um, I'm aware of the research in terms of how menopause impacts different ethnic groups. So again, unfortunately for global majority women, we will experience it earlier, and the symptoms may last longer again, um, and they may be more exaggerated as well. We just don't get a
mm.
break, do we?
No.
So yeah, it does differ in that regard. But something I haven't looked at is how it may impact on introverted and extroverted women.
Mm,
It may not. I honestly don't know, but
mm.
that would be very interesting.
Yeah, that
Um,
would be, yeah,
yeah.
particularly when I think about how introverted women are overstimulated by certain environments, or how their
Mm,
energy is
mm.
depleted, how extroverts are energized. So yes, I do
Yes,
wonder about
yes.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it would be very interesting in terms of energy or even mood,
Yes,
if
yes,
those are one of the
mood.
symptoms. So
Mm,
yes, if
yeah.
fatigue and low energy are one of the things you're experiencing, it would be very interesting to see how different women navigate that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you mentioned about global majority women um, experiencing it earlier and with more severe symptoms. And do you know what the reason is for that? Does the
Um,
research show any
yes,
reasons as to why that is?
I think some of it again might be related to genetics, but it's more in terms of foods we eat,
Mm,
etc., or just we like stress, like I mentioned. So cortisol is one of the hormones that increases in that time. And if you already have quite a stressful life, then your symptoms will be worse, for example. So it's just some of it
hmm
might be lifestyle factors, I think. Yeah, so it's things like that may
Yeah.
impact, or certain dietary foods, because certain foods may be exacerbating the symptoms, like I said.
hmm
So we may have to cut down on a particular spice, not all spices, because some spices actually help. So it will really depend on the individual.
Yeah.
And just I think in general, just health inequalities.
Yes.
Mm,
Yes.
mm,
And we know that those exist.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a growing body of research that shows that there are health inequalities. And
yes,
um, well, what you said about the stress, so when it comes to managing the symptoms, managing stress, and a lot of people I find don't realize the impact that stress has on our bodies, has on our immune system and our overall
mm,
well-being. Um, so I think that is quite important to think about how people are managing,
it
how
really,
people are
really
managing
is.
stress.
It
Mm,
really, really is. I
yeah.
mean, they say stress is the biggest killer, and I see why, because a lot of the time we're carrying it, we may not necessarily recognize the impact it's having.
Mm,
Um, and the other thing as women, we've kind of learned to just get on with it.
mm,
Some may not, especially as introverts, who may not share with others, etc. We're just like, I'm just going to get on with it. But you're carrying so much that load, which is why it's so important to talk to others and share and a problem shared is a problem halved. And for me, it will be prayer and having that community, etc. But stress really does. That's why we have, in terms of, again, those chronic conditions, heart
hmm
disease, etc., etc. Particularly as we grow older and we're in that phase of life, it's really important that we find ways to manage our stress levels. It's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess saying that, as we're sort of looking at this, that for global majority women, and maybe not just global majority women, but women that have experienced trauma when it's
Yes.
been internalized, and that shows up in our bodies, the stress that that puts on in our bodies, and many people aren't even aware that they have internalized, whether it's depression, whether it's racism, whether it's some sort of abuse or other form of trauma as well. Mm.
100%. And it's recognizing the different traumas as well. There might be childhood trauma, there might be racial trauma, for example. It may be, things in your relationship in terms of abuse, etc. But it's all of those things that we bury, that unfortunately show up in different ways.
Mm. hmm
Which is why it's so important in terms of our health and well-being.
Mm.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And so in what way do you help women? So how if somebody is going through like menopause, perimenopause, and they're experiencing all these symptoms, how would you work with them?
I mean, one of the key things I focus on is nutrition, because
Mm,
nutrition is a powerhouse, and like I said, we can literally reverse certain conditions like diabetes, etc., through eating the right food. So, and for nearly every ailment or symptom, there's food you can eat to help with that. But it's more than just a food. So I look at nutrition, which is personalized to the individual, but I also look at lifestyle factors, like I said, so things like stress management, getting that better quality sleep. Sleep again is something we underestimate in terms of its importance. It is so important. It's really crucial. We're getting that good quality sleep. There's other lifestyle factors, and like movement is also so important. Things like strength training, just literally moving throughout your day. We have this sedentary lifestyle now, which isn't helped by, working from home, etc. So ensuring getting enough movement. And then things like mindset. Our mindset is so key, that the things we tell ourselves, but also that the mindset we have, we don't understand how much we limit ourselves by our thinking. So it's again looking at the mindset. Mindset is so important. But it's also habits. So there's some habits we're aware of, we're conscious of, and there's so many we're not conscious of. And I help women to look at the habits they have. And it's really developing those simple, small habits that then become a lifestyle. So with the holistic nutrition coaching, I look at all three areas, because all three are equally as important, but I don't think we recognize how important they are to help us thrive, really.
Yeah, and that is important. I mean, I know myself personally, sleep is something that I could do better at.
Yes.
And I know a lot of women, when they're busy, they've got sort of demanding jobs, they've got families, they're trying to sort of balance everything.
Yes.
Sleep is an area that can easily be compromised.
It's so important. Yeah. I think it's just important for our bodies to function properly, for instance. Because when we're resting in terms of muscle growth, in order to our circadian rhythm, it's so important in terms of how we function. But like I said, we don't realize how important it is. One of the things we don't prioritize. I just don't think we prioritize our health, full stop. And then there's different facets of our health that is so important, particularly as we grow older, like I said. So things like movement is so key, and sleep, and managing our stress, and what we eat. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is important. When I'm doing workshops on sort of stress and well-being, one of the things that I get participants to look at is their cars and how they look after their cars. And people will make sure that their cars are running properly, that they've got oil, that they've been serviced and all that. But we don't do that with ourselves.
We don't, because we get MOTs for our cars, and we given reminders. But when was the last time we did an MOT for your health?
Yeah. Yeah, so important. Well, thank you. This has been a very interesting conversation. I feel as if I could have continued talking to you about, because it's such an important topic, which I think is not talked about enough. So thank you, Yvonne. And if people want to find out more about you and your work, where's the best place for them to go?
So if you're on social media, you can find me at Real Health with Yvonne. So that's one word. I'm on Instagram. I'm also on TikTok. On LinkedIn, I'm Yvonne Okiyo.
Okay. So thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening, everybody. Do go and follow Yvonne on social media. We will put the links to her social platforms in the show notes. And do go and check her out. Check out her content and follow her advice. And if you're looking to increase your confidence, influence, and impact, if you haven't completed the free assessment on my website, go to aboundingsolutions.com. Under the free resources, there's an assessment that you can complete that will give you ideas about areas that you can focus on. And so, until the next time, bye.